Yeah, that's your name.
Squirrels got me.
Big Jim.
Yeah.
Really, 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 really cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
Cold and fun.
That's good that you think that of it, because that's what deer hunting typically is cold and fun.
Yesterday morning, I'm glassing up on the pass, and I see these deer moving, and I'm like, ooh, there's deer moving. All of a sudden, I just see this person just head down, just hauling ass, wearing shorts and a t-shirt with a pack on. And I'm like, is that Tard? My dad always talks about floating through the woods like the autumn breeze.
So Robert's
when you're
the ghost, and
275
what's
pounds, I don't know how you do that, but
the Freightliner. It's just like a creeper. You're just kind of up in the corner watching what's going on down there.
yeah,
You know,
he's like,
he's up there slapping, pissing all over everything.
is it warm yet?
How did you know the name of the actor?
That's I know.
Why did you say his name?
Hervé Villachez.
You know what pert near means.
If you know what pert near means and you live in America, you're a redneck too.
Welcome to the Log Talk Podcast, brought to you by Pert Near Outdoors. Hey guys, guess what? We're starting to get back on track here. Yeah, that's right. This is me. It's Friday morning, the 24th. Yep, it'll be the 24th. I'm recording this on Thursday night, the 23rd. And we're getting the podcast back on track here and excited about it, quite frankly. So this week I had a couple podcasts recorded. Recorded one on today's Thursday, so recorded one on Wednesday with that's what this episode is going to be with Pat Guyette, the host of the Hunt Suburbia Podcast. He is up. He's a Boston native right now. It sounds like he was from Vermont originally, but lives in the Boston area. So we had a fun chat. Pat and I connected back during the winter in regards to his upcoming event, which is what we spent a good portion of this discussion talking about, HUNTSTOCK. So you will hear plenty about it in the discussion. Hope you enjoy that end of things. We also get into talking kind of hunting traditions, the lifestyle, the big woods fad that we're starting to see now, which is awesome because that really speaks to a lot of us here in the Northeast. You know, our style of hunting does not always mix with what you see on the TV shows in the Midwest and all the content that comes out of there. So it's really exciting to start to see a little bit of a surge in the content that's being produced here in the Northeast, and that's exactly what Pat is trying to highlight with his event. So very excited to have him on here and excited to support him in getting the word out about his event this August. I believe it's the second weekend of August, like the 12th through the 14th, I believe is that weekend. So check it out. You'll hear plenty about it here, and enjoy that chat. As far as housekeeping items, just reminders. We do have still some raffle tickets available for our Pert Near Life, what do we call it? Life Ring raffle. Wow, what a salesman I am. We're doing that raffle, raising money for the Southtown Walleyes for their initiative to purchase life rings for the Niagara River and Buffalo River waterfront in Buffalo. Currently, there are no devices there. You've heard me talk about that, and they are doing some great things working with the Buffalo City Council to raise funds to purchase these life rings, which are not cheap. They're $500 a piece. So every little bit that is out there can help. So we are about 100 tickets in, and we have 200 tickets total. The drawing, what the prize is for the raffle is a 4-person, 6-hour trip on Lake Erie with our friend Jim from Ultimate Outdoors Adventures, or Ultimate Sports Fishing. God darn it! I should just have one of these tickets right in front of me. I can tell you what it is. Sorry, Jim. It's Ultimate Adventure Sport Fishing. I keep on wanting to say something else, but he operates out of Sunset Bay, so pretty awesome opportunity. Those trips are not cheap, especially when you get into four people and multiple, like 6-7 hours on the lake. That's not an inexpensive thing. So for $20 a ticket, you can get in on this. You can get your ticket on our website, or you can reach out to any of us at Pert Near Outdoors directly and hit us up. Say, hey, I want a ticket, and we'll get you one way or another. The drawing is going to be July 10th, and that will be done at the Southtown Walleye Derby Awards Ceremony, where they will be awarding the winner of the Derby, which they just wrapped up last weekend. And saw Kim at the gym this morning, which is Jim's wife, and she helps run that tournament, and said there's a little drama. Sounds like somebody may or may not have, might be a little fibbing going on. And there's a lot to this contest. And I learned when I went to that meeting where they had the signups and the rules explained for the contest. It's a big deal. It's big money. It has a lot of checks and balances to make sure that people are doing things the right way, because at the end of the day, when somebody's walking away with potentially up to 20 grand, that is no joke, and you want to make sure that people are doing things above board. So long story short, you will be able to win a trip with them on their boat if you enter in this drawing, and you can feel good about yourself because you supported a great cause. That's enough on that. Lastly, beer event. Things are just ticking right along. We're almost to the 1st of July, so that means we're about 31 days away from our beer event at Windy Brew, July 31st. We have things kind of coming together there in what we're going to have at that event. The beer label has been finalized, and I spoke with Windy Brew and their artists this morning to finish up the things on the can end of things. But Russ Morgan really knocked it out of the park. Him and I worked together last week to kind of get ourselves together and what we're trying to do with our design. And I think once we get this out, everybody's going to love it. It's we're going with the feeding them theme. That's what we're all about here at Pert Near. And so we were kind of able to capture that in an image, something that we can make shirts with, hoodies, maybe hats. I'm thinking hats, we might stick with our old, with the same style hat we did before. But really, when it comes to apparel, we were looking for something that was cool, that people would like to wear, regardless of whether they knew what the podcast was or if they listen to podcasts, doesn't matter. Kind of a lifestyle shirt that people would think was hip and in and would buy it just because it looks cool. So we were really hunting for that. We found it. I think we nailed it. I think Russ did a great job, and we're going to use it for the beer label. And Wendy's actually going to go and try to get this label approved and be able to take this beer and sell it in storefronts around the area. So very big opportunity, and really excited to be able to continue to grow this adventure with not just ourselves, but with Windy Brew and the Deer Association and the Venison Donation Coalition as well. Really just continuing to grow together, and a lot of good things popping, good things happening, and had an awesome meeting today with some guys in the Finger Lakes area about some big things that are happening there, some big ideas, some big potential future things that could come down the pipe, with some really cool people that I had no idea about until about the last week or so. And all of a sudden, we're all standing at the same place today and sharing stories and sharing a meal, and very, very excited about what could come in the future for not just the individuals at that meeting, but the people in the region that want to get involved in these sort of things and maybe don't know where to start. You've got a very hungry group of individuals that are looking to figure out a way to bring experiences to people in this area, and even people from outside the area that want to come here and experience all the resources we have in the Finger Lakes, which is pretty unique to have all of those lakes, all of those state forests. We got the Finger Lakes National Forest, tons of ag land. The deer hunting is outstanding. The turkey hunting is great. The fishing is, world class, and we got a lot to offer. So I think we got a pretty badass crew of guys that got together. We don't know exactly. This is not at all me. This is other people that are trying to put this together, and hopefully we at Pert Near Outdoors can help support that and drive whatever comes of these sort of things. So you'll hear that podcast next week, and I'll just tease that here. But enjoy this week's show with Pat, and do me a favor and go over and check out his Instagram page, check out his podcast, and if you are interested in checking out his event here this August, I strongly recommend it. So thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and keep feeding them. You do have a right to bear arms. Feed them. All right, I think we're connecting the live video. Hit the record button. We're ready to rip.
Awesome.
So we'll be live on Facebook here in just a second. You could share that if you wanted to, or it'll be
let's see.
on Hurting Your Outdoors Facebook page.
Okay. So I go to your page and then hit share.
Yep. If you go to my Facebook page, Hurting Your Outdoors Podcast, and you can share it from there. So welcome anybody who's jumping on here live with us on the Bullhorn app or on Facebook. I'm joined by Pat Guyette. That's how you say your last name, right? Guyette?
Yep. Nailed it.
So Pat Guyette from the Hunt Suburbia Podcast up in the New England region. So we're going to chat a little bit about a event he's got coming up here. Son of a bitch. My recorder's telling me I got a problem. But that's why it's nice to have redundancies here. One nice thing about using Bullhorn is that you can, it's all recorded on here, the video and everything, so it's all in one place.
Awesome.
Well,
I just shared everything over on my page too, so it looks like that's working. That's cool.
Nice. Yeah, so we've got some listeners on here live with us. The goal of today is to get your name out there, talk about what you have coming up this summer with the big event you're planning, which is something totally new to the outdoor space and something that I'm very excited about. I don't think we're going to be able to make it, which I'm really bummed because you've got a hell of a crew that is going to be coming to this. And it's very difficult to find any event where you've got characters like the ones that are going to be attending all in one place and accessible and there for you to, as the individual attending an event like this, to interact with personally. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, give the listeners a rundown of who you are, where you're from, and then we can get into what's going on with this event.
Yeah, thank you. So Pat Guyette, I live in Massachusetts, grew up in Vermont, hunting up there, but over the last 3 years, been kind of stopping the traveling all the way to Vermont to hunt every time, and just wanted to kind of learn the woods, in the suburbs of Boston. And so that's what I've been doing. Totally changed my hunting style from bigger woods, deer camp style hunting to suburban bow hunting. So I started the podcast, Hunt Suburbia Podcast, just kind of following along in that journey. 3 years ago, I was very green to bow hunting. Like I said, I've been hunting my whole life, but I was green to bow hunting. So I kind of had a decent idea of basic deer behaviors and all of that stuff. But bow hunting was new, and the way that deer, move and live in the suburbs is much different. So I kind of brought listeners along on that journey. So beginners really like to listen to the podcast. They pick up, tips and kind of accelerate their hunting knowledge really quickly listening to the podcast. So they've said in emails to me and stuff like that. But people who are advanced and really good hunters love to listen to it too, because there's just not much in the Northeast and New England area for content. So that's been a really fun journey, building the podcast up. And I've got a background in events and sponsorship. So the next logical step was like, let's create something that isn't on the market right now in the event world. And there's a lot of great events out there. I'm not trying to do anything that other people have already done. I think Total Archery Challenge, it's awesome. It's a great event for archers. They build the best courses for 3D archery. We're going to have a 3D archery component at HUNTSTOCK, but that's not the focus. Like, those guys crush that space, and they can continue to crush that space. My idea is to kind of revamp the festival area, make it more of a learning experience with some awesome seminars, have all the talent, anybody who creates content in the Northeast, to kind of all converge in one spot, share their knowledge with people, beginners all the way up to, legendary hunters, and really have it be this big networking event, people hanging out, drinking some beers, listening to music, food trucks, seminars, live podcasts. We do have a 3D archery component. It's going to be 20 targets this year, because I know folks do love to do that. So we'll have that part there for people. We're giving away 15 grand in door prizes, and that's really it in a nutshell, man. It's like, if you want to learn as much as you can in a weekend, like, this is like going to Big Buck University, is kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, and kind of the New England space has, I feel like, really plain and simple, with the emergence of what the Big Woods Bucks guys are doing with their social media and their podcast, has like really blown up the space. And then you've got guys like the Just Hunt Club, with a few of those guys that are up that way, and they're kind of making it more mainstream. You got the hunting public who came and did some videos in the Adirondacks this year, and it's like this is what we all grew up with and love. We have a very hard time relating to whitetail hunting in the Midwest and out in other parts of the country, the South. Like I have no interest in whitetail hunting in the South. No offense to anybody from the South, but it just does not tickle my. Don't have the cold weather, the inclement end of things. Like that's when I love to really get into deer hunting, is when you've got the snow flying or the temperatures dropping, it's snotty, nasty out, and you're out there struggling trying to fill a tag. Like that's what I grew up loving about deer hunting. Maybe when I was younger, I didn't love it, but now as I get older, those are the days that I desire the most. But what you're doing here with this and the event, you kind of talked right there about it, but like walk us through what the event is going to look like and how it's going to be set up there. Like where are you hosting it? I think what you're doing with that is pretty cool too. So start right there. Like what does a day at HUNTSTOCK look like?
Yeah, so it's in Westminster, Massachusetts, at a beautiful farm called Wildwood Farm. He was actually a listener of the podcast, had heard me kind of floating the idea of starting this event. And he DM'd me and said, "Hey man, I got a farm. It's got a couple 100 acres and it's in Westminster. Give me a ring. You check it out. I think it'd be perfect for what you're talking about." So I literally set it up the next weekend. I went out there. They're an awesome family. The farm is beautiful. It really is set up perfectly for an event like this. And then, I just want to say, like, HUNTSTOCK is based around the content creators and the amazing hunters that are coming. And it starts with Big Woods Bucks. They're an awesome crew. I formed a relationship with their CEO, Chris Dalty, a couple of years ago, was helping them out with their podcast a little bit and getting them some sponsors, and just wanted to help out because I was a fan. I loved their podcast. It was, like you said, it's for the Northeast. It was hitting a niche that there hasn't been out there for content. So I started listening to their podcast, fell in love with it, reached out, offered some help, and just really formed a great relationship with Chris Dalty. He actually told me the basic stuff that I would need to start my podcast and the kit. Even, I got the Zoom H6 because he told me to get that. And he showed me the basics on sound editing. So just an awesome guy. And he has built a team around himself there at Big Woods Bucks, starting with Hal Blood, who is the legend, right? He is probably the best tracker in the country right now, and they're heavily focused on tracking, which is one thing, and why I wanted to start the Hunt Suburbia podcast, because Big Woods Bucks, great podcast, very heavily focused on tracking. If there's a Northeastern archer or bow hunter and they're looking for some content, there was kind of a void there. So I kind of fell into that niche. But yeah, Chris Dalty, Hal Blood, they built an awesome team. I think they've got, I don't even know, 20 team members, and every one of them has killed, a dozen 200-pound bucks by tracking. That's their big focus. A lot of those guys are going to be coming to HUNTSTOCK. I don't know exactly how many, but within their group, there's 5-6 legends already, and then a bunch of up and comers who are killers. So they're going to be great there. They're going to be a focal point. They're going to be doing their podcast live at the event each day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Hal Blood will be doing some seminars there. Rick Labby, Jeff Parody will be doing some seminars there. Neil Pendleton's doing one, Timmy Bolduck. They've just got an awesome lineup of hunters. And then kind of after that, we've got Just Hunt Club. Like you said, they brought the hunting public style of content and filming and just semi-live hunting that the Northeast didn't have. Like Big Woods Bucks produces some amazing films too on the tracking side, but it's a lot of production work, and it takes a couple months after the hunt. And Just Hunt Club is bringing something different where they hunt tons of styles. They're bow hunters, they're big woods stand hunters. They do improvement work on building wildlife habitat on private property that they own up there. And then they also bow hunt and they duck hunt, and they've got a bunch of stuff, and they're doing that hunting public style content for the Northeast. And it's just really tremendous stuff. So those guys are all coming down to HUNTSTOCK. They're super pumped about it. Just got off the phone call with them a couple days ago to touch base, and they're raffling off a Mossberg shotgun or hunting rifle from their tent. So it's a giveaway, not a raffle. You just go up and sign up for it, and
Nice.
somebody will be able to leave. So in addition to like the $15,000 of door prizes that I've locked in for everybody who attends HUNTSTOCK as the official HUNTSTOCK door prizes, there's going to be door prizes and giveaways at most of these content creators booths as well. So Just Hunt Club, Big Woods Bucks, Northwoods Whitetails, another great group of hunters who are focused on big woods. They're heavily tracking focused as well, based out of Vermont, but a lot of their hunters are Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Those guys, Jeff Doyle is in that group. It's led by Joey Davis, who's I think he's killed 20 200-pounders, and he's a pretty young buck himself. And then you got Jeff Doyle, John Moulton, Isaac Young. Isaac's been on all these guys have been on my podcast, but Isaac is I think he's only 26, and he's been killing some giant deer, hunting big woods. John Wright. I mean, they've got a whole list of incredible hunters too. So just between those three groups, Northwoods Whitetails, Just Hunt Club, and Big Woods Bucks, I mean, you've got a ton of legends. And then in the interest of time, I don't want to go through every single content creator that'll be there, but you can find the list on the event page, and everybody's just going to want to have great conversations, meet folks, and have a good time.
Yeah. Do you have a separate website set up for it to buy tickets? Is that something you buy a ticket in advance, or you can get a ticket the day of? How does that work?
Right now, I don't have the website where we're selling tickets online. Is just Eventbrite, Eventbrite, BRITE.com. And if you just go to Google and you type in HUNTSTOCK, one word, it's the first thing that pops up. I will get a website for next year, just HUNTSTOCK.com. I've already reserved it. I just haven't built it out yet. And you can get tickets online, but you can also get them at the door. The only thing is we're capped at this farm at 2,000 people per day. So there is a chance that it sells out. And if a day is going to sell out, it's going to be Saturday. That's far outpacing all the other days. Friday starts at noon. It's going to be noon to 8. And it's going to shape up to be somewhat of a VIP experience. A lot of people have work. I know, some people might take it off to come, but there'll probably be a couple hundred folks on Friday and a couple thousand on Saturday. And then Sunday, probably close to Saturday. But if you really want to go on Saturday, I would encourage you to get online and buy the tickets there. So you're guaranteed a spot, because you might not be able to walk up to the door on Saturday.
Yeah. I'm fascinated to see what you get for a turnout in the first year of doing something like this, because I think getting the word out there about it is the most difficult thing. And then, having people know who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. But I think, if you continue to do this, I think this is something that could really grow, because for me personally, like I have so much interest in an event like this. It's just trying to find the time and balance it around your summer schedules. It's obviously the biggest challenge. And you're planning an event, you can't plan it around anybody's in particular schedule. You just got to pick a weekend that works and just let it rip. But I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for what this event can be and turn into being, because I'm seeing I've kind of been like tuned out of the hunting. Like, I'm having a hard time in April and May and June being like excited about hunting. I think we all go through that. I've talked with some other buddies, and Jeremy Dinsmore, he's tuned in with us here on Bullhorn. He has a hunting podcast out of Pennsylvania, the Antler Up podcast. And he and I were actually talking about that the other day. It's very difficult for content creators in these spring months, not only to get people to engage with you, but also to stay engaged yourself. And yesterday I caught myself. I saw that Big Woods released a new podcast, and I jumped on the lawnmower and I was listening to that, and it's like, just gets you kind of back in the flow. Like, listen to them in that kind of hunting camp vibe that they had going on that episode with some of the new characters that are coming on with them, a bunch of the members, children that are starting to get involved with the group.
Yep.
And like it just kind of like gets your juices flowing again. So I think come August, you're definitely going to have people, gearing up for the fall, and their heads are going to be in the game, and they're going to want to be at something like this to get a crash course from some of the best out there. And so I'm very excited for you. I think this is going to be a smash hit this year, and I think to come it'll grow bigger and bigger.
Yeah, the idea is just to be different, do something different. I like the idea of having a bunch of podcasts and making it like a concert lineup. And, we do have 7 or 8 podcasters coming to the event. But my long-term vision is like, you got 15, 20 different podcasts. We got 3 or 4 stages, and it's set up like a music festival is. And it's like, it's got something for everybody. You want to go see turkey hunting podcast or seminars, it's on stage 1. And stage 2, you got Big Woods Bucks doing Big Woods tracking stuff. Then you got suburban bow hunting over here. And it's like, there's going to be, that's my vision, is to have different sections of the festival for everybody, and kind of sponsors coming in and content creators coming in and being a part of building their section out. Like whatever you love to do, it's like you can take ownership of like, I want to really build this Western style hunting, outfitter style section, right? So it's a cross between, I don't know if you've heard of Burning Man, but Burning Man is the huge music festival out in the desert, and people build, literally, it's like they build a city there. It's a city for like a week. You go, there's nothing there, and then all of a sudden, a few days later, there's streets. You've got giant sections. You've got experiences, and it's all the sponsor or the content creator like builds that experience into something. So you walk into the festival and there's like 8 mini festivals to go check out. Yeah. Like that's what I want it to be. I always think big. And it'll take a few years to get it to something like that. Where there's overnight camping as well. Like I want people to be able to drive a couple 100 miles and stay right on site and overnight camp and have it be a big 3-day fun festival. So this year there's no on-site camping. But again, it's gonna evolve into that stuff, but no on-site camping this year. The festival will be, nowhere near as big and exciting as that sounds, but it's still going to be awesome. It's going to be a first step in the direction to create this great experience for Northeastern hunters. And then if it gets successful here over the first couple of years, then the idea would be to bring it to a few different places across the country and do a Western one, do a Midwest one, do a Southern one, and kind of scale it up into 4 or 5 regional events every year.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it happen. I mean, look at what the Total Archery Challenge turned into, and that started out, I'm sure, I don't know how small it originally started, but I think it was a pretty small event, and now it is like the archery hunting destination thing to do throughout the summer across the country. Totally. It's massive. So the potential's there. It's awesome. And I'm just sitting here thinking, because we're doing our Pert Near Fest, our little beer festival we're going to do. We're releasing our beer on July 31st.
That's awesome.
Thinking, I'm like, how can I get a case of beer sent up to HUNTSTOCK so that people are drinking the Feeding them Pilsner is what we're calling it. So it's
nice.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that. So yeah, these events are great, and I think they're a fun way to engage with people in a different way. Whereas, with the podcast, you could just be any guy sitting in his basement like I am right now. And when you actually get out there and start interacting with the listeners, it's totally changes the perspective of what you're doing here as a content creator.
Yeah.
I think I'm sure that there's some when it gets to a point where it's so big, it's very difficult because it's like you also want to have a private life. But when you're putting yourself out there like this, people listen to you. You don't realize how in tune they are with what you're saying and what you're doing. And then it gets to a point where it's like they almost, I have people I listen to that's like, I feel like we're friends. I never even met you. I didn't even
That's
talk
the
to
thing.
you,
That's the thing with podcasts. Yeah, you get accustomed to someone's voice, and I think I heard Rogan say one time where he's just like the secret sauce to podcasting is to ease the words into the listener's ear. Like, you don't want it to feel sharp and like rough and like jumping all across the place all the time and bad editing. It's like, it needs to be like a smooth, like, as long as it's a smooth conversation and it just kind of like flows into the listener's ear, that the idea is to make it listenable. And that if you just do that, and you consistently put out the podcast and whatever content that you're doing, one of the keys is consistency, then you're gonna grow and you'll get better at it every single time you do it.
Yeah. I mean, I listen to his show. I don't listen to everyone, but I pick and choose what's interesting to me to listen to. I'm sure most do. He has such a broad variety of discussions, but he's incredible. I mean, his ability to have a discussion where they start and where they finish,
yeah,
and how you get there, and every one of them is almost 3 hours, but there's no downtime in the discussion. You're like, you don't know where it's going. And it's difficult, as a host, you feel like you need to keep it entertaining. You got to keep people engaged, and it gets really difficult to, because you feel like you're trying, and that's the science behind it, is that if you can just make it a flowing conversation, those things do turn into 3-hour discussions. I talk to people on the phone all the time, and I'm like, God, I wish I was recording this, because this is like
totally
money discussion that we can't recreate, and we just did it. And now I can't redo it because it's just not going to be natural and real. But that is I mean, how long have you been podcasting? What's the history of your show? I mean, you've been doing this for a few years, or?
It'll be 2 years in September. So only a year and a half. Started it in September of 2020. And yeah, so it'll be 2 years in September. It's crazy because it feels like it's been 2.5 or longer, but it hasn't even been 2 years yet. Pandemic, like the pandemic got me into it. 2020 was like I lost I'm in sales, right? And I had all these deals lined up, for my day job. And then, 2020, like with most people, just put a stop to the business. Like we couldn't have events. So I didn't make hardly any money in 2020, was staying home. And I was like, well, if there's ever a time to kind of take advantage of no commuting in the morning and afternoon anymore, get out into the woods, I really started scouting a lot more and learning a lot more about my area and suburban hunting in 2020. And I was like, I just got to start a podcast and take people along on this journey. And then talking to hunters, like hunters who are way better than me, like everybody I've interviewed on the podcast is a better hunter than me, and that has made me a better hunter. Like you're a sum of your 5 best friends. That's who you are. And it's the same thing with your hunting group. If you're surrounding yourself with good hunters, you are going to become a good hunter,
Yeah.
And that's what's happened over the last 2 years. Is just I've been able to learn hundreds of years of knowledge from all the collective people on the podcast in a year and a half. And it's been awesome. And it's funny, like you said, you go through the lull where, all right, it's a freaking rush, and it is like day in, day out from September to December 31st, and a lot of guys into January. And then I did more shed hunting this year too, so that kind of helps add a tail to the end. January, February, I put a lot of miles on, try to find sheds. And then after that, it's like, all right, March, April, and May, it was kind of like a lull where I wasn't thinking about it so much. I was planning HUNTSTOCK, but yeah, the last few weeks I've been putting cameras out. I've been checking cameras, and I've just been getting real excited. I found in completely new spots. I've got some giant bucks that I already have, like full 8-point racks that are probably 130, already.
Really?
You still got a month or more to grow. So that's starting to get me excited. I went out this morning. I just got back 10 minutes before this podcast to check one camera. I saw 3 or 4 deer when I went out. I think it was either a coyote or a bobcat was chasing them. They were running in circles around me. At first, I thought I jumped them up out of bed because I was walking by a known bedding area, and I was like, oh, shit, I jumped them up. But they started running at me and then down over the hill, and I saw flashes of a small. I couldn't tell if it was a coyote or a bobcat, but something was chasing them around in there. But yeah, man, the juices are flowing now. Like I can't wait to get back out there.
I know. And that's where, for me, it's funny how things have transitioned for me. I look back at my timeline photos and things, and you go back to pre-pandemic, I was completely bit by the public land bug. And I still love hunting public land.
Yep.
But since the pandemic, and I guess that's just the easiest way to put a timestamp on it. But I like, after 2020, and then we had our second child in the spring of 2020, and I like really like honed myself in like I just trying to stay as close to home as possible. And most of the land that I was hunting that was public and doing a lot of scouting on is an hour and a half away where our family hunting camp is. So it's just so much easier for me to be close to home. But now what's totally changed with me is that I'm spending a ton of time on my in-laws' property, working on habitat and food plots with them and doing things. So like where I was hiking like once or twice a week, scouting, shed hunting, things like that. Now I'm like, if I can get an hour an afternoon, I'm grabbing the chainsaw and I'm going and cutting trees. Or now that it's food plot time, so like it totally changes that perspective. But now we got all our plots in, we got all the our summer stuff and into the fall. Everything's in the ground. Things are starting to grow. I just dropped the kids off at my in-laws a couple hours ago, and the corn just in the last like 3-4 days, we've had some good heat and a little bit of rain. And the corn we got some sweet corn we're growing for us to eat, but also the stuff that's in those food plots, like that looks really good. So yeah, you starting to get that itch, but that's wild to hear that you got bucks that are already stacking like full 8-point racks on. We haven't in our area here, we have 2 cutting link systems that we're running in 2 different places, and haven't seen any bucks in either of the areas that we hunt that have like full on racks going. We've got a bunch that are out to their ears and going, but
see if you can see this. This is like a brand new spot I was scouting in February while shed hunting.
Oh wow, that's just recently.
Yeah, this was June 16th.
Wow,
he's like wide past his ears and just a big. I can't.
That's interesting too, because I'm guessing you're not really. We're probably at about the same latitude. I would say, right? Buffalo, and then you're near Boston-ish.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So, we're kind of probably somewhat similar weather pattern. It's very interesting to see the antler growth and how it differentiates. I know we've got some guys out of Pennsylvania that I follow, and they're posting trail cam pictures, and they're further ahead than we are, just a couple hours away. So it's interesting, how the deer put on antler mass and how they're growing.
I think it's different too. I think every deer is just different. Like most of the velvet bucks that I have right now are 6 points or still 4, 4 to 6, like most of them. I think I've got 3 that you can start to see the 8 points, and 2 like last night I took a ride, and I've got a buck I've been hunting for 2 years. I call the Austin buck. My son's name is Austin, and the day before he was born, my wife was ready to pop, and it was kind of I like to go check cameras on rainy, windy days, and it was a day like that. So I had this camera set up in a summer feeding and bedding location. They're consistently in there in the summer. Big group of bachelor bucks. I went in to go check that camera. I jumped this buck out of bed, and this was June 24th, 2020. And I always bring my binoculars with me when checking cams in case I jump something up and I want to check it out. I mean, he was only 40 or 50 yards away. I didn't need binoculars. He was out to his ears on June 24th, and I could see the start to 8 points. So I was like, oh, wow, that's the biggest buck I've ever seen in person at that time. And now this same buck, I saw him last night, and it's a couple years later. So June 21st, I saw him, and he looks like he was 2 years ago when he was fully, when this rack was fully formed. He's at that point now, 2 years later. It's just cool seeing how they progress. And then last year I had this buck that had he was a 9-pointer way outside his ears on June 9th, like beginning of June. And then he actually didn't, they'll put on time length in June, July, but he didn't put on a whole bunch after that. Like he was, I would say probably 75 or 80% of his growth was already by June 9th, this one buck. So I think it varies.
It does. And I think too, a lot of it is weather dependent. We had a pretty rough winter here. We had a good portion of, it seemed like maybe January, February, and into the beginning of March where it was cold. We never lost snowpack. Like it was a grinder of a winter. For the deer. And I wonder too if because I see a couple comments on Bullhorn here other guys that are in the area that they've seen the same thing, that they're just not putting a ton of antler mass on, but we had a buck that was a freaking big buck that was hit over by my buddy's farm in Livingston County that looked like it had some of the similar genetics to a buck that one of our guys shot last year. And he had just crazy mass, but he had everything going on at the bases. He had the split brow tines already and a lot of mass getting out to his ears, but he hadn't gone past that point. But I mean, the mass was, I don't know, it was big around as my wrist. So it was a huge buck, but they're just not there yet. So
well, look at this one. This is the one from June. This was June 9th last year.
Oh my God.
Look at that thing.
Wow.
June 9th, his bases are soda cans. He had 9 points. And when I saw that, I was like, Jesus, this guy's going to be a booner, because if he's that big in June 9th, he barely started the growing process.
Well, he's out and he hasn't gone up yet. What did he end up turning into? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, I want to show you. I actually, the first time I went and hunted that stand location was an awesome day. It was cold, early November. I busted the rattle horns out, and 3 bucks came charging down the ridge that I'm kind of halfway down after I rattled. And I mean, they must have been on their way down anyway, but like they were there within like 10 seconds of me pulling the rattle horns out. And I watched them all fight, and 2 pretty mature bucks, but I was after this one. They were fighting 40, 50 yards away from me. And then a spike horn comes in too, and he's kind of like just investigating from the outside, watching them fight. And I'm just thinking, where's the big one? And 30, 40 seconds after that, I see he's slowly just coming. He's, facing this way. He's off to my right. He's slowly coming through. And he's only 30 yards, but it's really thick there, and I had no shots. But I'd see him, and he just doesn't care. He knew I rattled. He already knew where the other bucks were, and he's smart and old and mature, more so than those other guys. He just knew that something was up. And he's like, there's no bucks down there fighting. He knew exactly where I was, circled around, stayed behind a big tree. This is what he turned into. It's kind of hard to see in that picture. I mean, he
didn't really gain a ton of tine length. He's just a freaking brute. Oh my God, look at the body on him.
Yeah, I think he weighs 250 pounds. He's huge. Yeah.
Now, when everybody talks about 200 pounder, is that with the guts in or without the guts?
Without the guts.
Without the guts. Okay.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah. The Northeast, like, especially trackers, and it's a Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont thing more than anything else, but you want the 200-pound buck, and that's with everything: guts, liver, heart, all of that stuff out, fully dressed, clean.
Fully field dressed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a personal crusade, and that is to educate and get all of our fellow Northeastern deer hunters to stop dragging their deer out of the woods and start quartering them up so that they don't suffer from heart attacks and health issues as they get older.
That's interesting.
So I was talking, I had Austin Sheeran on the podcast back. We do a thing called Breeding 'em Radio, and we have guys on to tell their story from the previous week if they shot something. So we kind of follow along and watch people and see who gets something, and then we get them on to tell a story during the week so people can hear how they did it. Kind of a little bit of educational for before they head out the next weekend. So I had Austin on, and he was telling us his story about his grueling. It was his first solo tracking kill of a buck, and he told us, the story about it was just a rough drag out. And I'm like, why? Like, I don't understand it. We quarter everything. So if we're doing anything anything on public or backcountry situation where we're miles away, like, we're quartering and carrying it out in game bags. That's how we hunt as a group. And even individually, that's the way I do it. I've dragged, but it's typically if it's downhill and it's just easier to do that. But hearing some of these stories, I understand getting, you want to know if you got a 200-pound buck. I get that. But holy shit, carry a scale. Like, how heavy is a scale? You can take a digital scale into the woods with you and weigh it, and then take care of butchering it there to pack it out.
No, that's not a bad idea there. Yeah, because it's just one of those things. It's as important, if not more important, as what your antlers score to Northeastern hunters is that weight, and I think it's mostly Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Doesn't really, doesn't go over to New York so much. It does in the Adirondacks, that kind of style hunting. But yeah, it's like you leaving your antlers behind in the woods. Like you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't want to leave all that weight back there. You want to see what he weighs.
Yeah, I like we joked about that, about we need to start carrying like one of those little, they make those little digital scales that you can just throw up over a limb, and you can hoist your deer up in the air with a little, what do you want to call those, little pulleys or whatever. Yeah, I don't like, I get it, but I can't imagine going through some of those spots.
The drag is like,
areas.
dude, the drag is, it's one of those things that for me, it's always, I love yeah, you hunt deep into the, like in Vermont, the drags are a long ways. They're a mile and a half a lot of the times. And yeah, it sucks when you're doing it, but it's one of those things that, like, the things that suck while you're doing it are the best things later on when you go back and look at it. But yeah, as I'm getting older, I mean, I'm getting some back issues, and I can't even think, the 60-year-olds that are dragging solo from a mile deep in the woods. Yeah, I bet that is a thing, and people are just having heart attacks.
Well, I know guys, I know of people that have literally died of heart attacks dragging deer here in farm country. Yeah. You get deep snow, you don't know that you got something health-wise going on in your heart, and you start trying to drag a deer, whether it's dressed or not. You're trying to drag this deer through the deep snow. I mean, you're just asking for, I know it was I don't know if it was somehow related. It was like my uncle's brother-in-law or something. He shot the biggest buck of his life, and he was dragging it out of the woods in like 2 foot of snow. Had a widowmaker heart attack, died right there. Wow, died right there with the deer. Yeah,
from a widowmaker, from like a limb.
No, and I guess don't they call like a heart attack where you? Because I know like a widowmaker is like a tree limb hanging up in the trees, but
yeah, I'm sure they do.
Widowmaker. It's just one that takes you like that, and you have no idea what hit you. Now you got a widow. But yeah, so I'd recommend it. Anybody out there who's listening on your end of the fence, any of you New Englanders, check it out. Like I never knew about it, and then my in-laws, they're big into they Western hunt, and I've gone on 3 trips out west, and so that like totally changed my perspective and approach on whitetail hunting here in our area in New York. And we have a ton of state land. We have a ton of over in the Finger Lakes, where I spend a lot of my time, where I grew up. We've got a lot of big side hills and big woods area. You have a little bit of ag, but for the most part, it's all big timber, big woods. And my God, do I have some awesome adventures going up, a mile and a half, going up a mountain and shooting deer up on top, or shooting them back in some of these ravines and stuff. And Jesus, I mean, they're so steep. I don't know how you would drag a deer out of there on your own. Even with 2 people, it's a bitch to get them up to a flat spot just to dress them. So it's I don't know.
It's nice. Have help. If you have help, it's definitely nice, and it's fun. Like I just like seeing a deer that's, and the joy from on a friend's face and stuff. So if anybody calls me and I'm here, I'm going to go help drag. I had help with both of my bucks from last year. And it's great. And in the suburbs, the drags are usually shorter. There's some bigger patches of woods, don't get me wrong, but the drags are usually shorter, which is kind of nice. But it's interesting. The pack out thing, I think, could be utilized like definitely by suburban hunters, because there's a thing when you're hunting in the suburbs where you're doing everything legally, you're doing it right, but you still want to be sneaky, because you don't want an anti-hunter or somebody to see you that is against it and be completely shocked and then just start an outrage, and who knows, to go down to City Hall or, talk to town selectmen or whatever it may be, to start petitioning and, getting things to be changed. And you don't want that to happen. So it's a weird thing where I'm sneaking around, and both my deer last year, like, I want to get out of the woods fast. I drag it to a certain point where it's still hidden, and then go home, change out of hunting gear, change into other stuff, get some help, back your car into the best place where it's, and like literally
shove a deer carcass in the back.
Yeah, the deer is only seen for a couple of seconds, right? So that you're limiting the exposure to people who don't even know that you might be hunting around them. So packing out might be a great thing for suburban hunters, especially if you're by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can even put the head. I was thinking the head will be sticking out with the rack, but you can put that in a trash bag too.
Yeah, you can put it. And I mean, I had a personal experience. My first time, I think it was the first deer I ever shot on public land. I shot a beautiful 8-pointer in a state park we have here in Western New York that is like huge recreational, people hiking, birding, cross country skiing, all of it. And I shot a buck and a doe that day in there, and we had like five or six of us, and it was my first experience with the pack out, first experience on public land killing something, and we quartered them up, both deer quartered them up, and we had the meat split up in all of our backpacks, and I had some meat in a head on my back, and we're walking out, in a single file line. It was like a 1.5 2-mile hike out on the trail, and we come up to a group of people that were hiking together. They were just hikers. And like, oh, do you have any luck? And like, I'm standing there with a freaking deer head on my back, and we're like, oh yeah, we shot 2 down over the edge, and like, oh really? Where are they? And we're like, they're in our backpack. And they're like, no, really, where's the deer? Like, well, they're in our backpack. Like and it didn't offend them. They had no issues with it. It was like, it was cool. It was a good experience. So yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think it could be something that, get a set of game bags. And if this is totally foreign to people that have never done it, you can go online, and there's tons of companies. I run the game bags I have. They're like a synthetic washable bag. There's a ton of companies out there that make them, but I've had them for maybe 3 years now, and I've packed probably, no joke, a dozen animals out between deer I've shot and people I know that I've helped pack animals out. And you just bring them home and wash them, and you can reuse them. But it'd be mint for something like that. You could quarter that deer up right there in the woods and put them in the bag. And the beauty of that is that you're getting that meat away from the carcass, and you're getting that meat cooling like immediately. Even if it's only 55 or 60 degrees out, it's cooling down rapidly, and then you can get it home and put it in something, whether it's a cooler or hang it in your fridge or whatever the situation is you have at your house. But yeah, it's totally inconspicuous. The meat's clean, and you get it done right there on the spot, and it would work really well, I think.
And it's much easier to pack out a whitetail than like an elk or a moose or something. So if you have aspirations to do that, you can practice on a whitetail.
Yeah.
Probably
it's all the same. It's all the same process. And once you get comfortable with doing it,
yeah, probably just putting 80 or 90 pounds of meat on your back, but most of the time, something in that.
And even with a whitetail, I mean, if you keep the bones in, an average size doe or buck, you're probably maybe max 75 pounds once you debone it and get everything in the bags. So it's a decent option for you there. I didn't think we were going to go down this road, but that's something for people to think about.
Yeah, I think you'd have to, because so many people do love to know what the weight is. You have to figure out the mobile scale. I'm sure those scales aren't too heavy. There's probably one on the market you could put in the backpack and wench up a tree or something.
Yeah, I think like HME makes them. They can't weigh more than a pound themselves, and they got a little digital. You got a loop on the top and a loop on the bottom, and you could just have a little bit of rope and some sort of a little winch system to get the deer up in the air, and you could do your weighing that way, and you could check the boxes. Maybe you need a witness, because then people will call BS that you had a bunch of rocks in them or something. But
that's yep.
So what else you got going on? So with your podcast, I've listened to a few episodes. It's you've kind of got a cool thing going where seems like you do make the effort to try to go to the individuals often, or they come to you and do the podcast. So you do a lot of interviews with kind of local hunters, is the way it seems your show goes, right?
Yeah. So far I haven't done one virtually or, on the phone or anything like that. They've all been in person. I just enjoy that more, but I realize that like I'm going to reach a point where I can't for time. And also I'll get to a point where I've interviewed everybody in the Northeast within driving distance. And I'm just going to have to, I really like this app. This Bullhorn is super cool. I know we had that nice call a couple months ago, and I just haven't been able to even explore it. Just been going crazy busy with HUNTSTOCK, the day job. And I'm just getting back into the swing of things with the podcast. I was doing every other week, which I normally do after the new year. It turns into every other week. And then some point during spring or summer, I'll get into every week again. And that's I've been really trying to get back to that the last couple of weeks. So I'm starting to stack up podcasts and build up, future drops. And I just did a Living Legends series. If anybody hasn't seen, but they're interested, I interviewed Lanny Benoit last year, and he's, maybe the best hunter that's alive right now in terms of like in his prime. He was, the son of Larry Benoit, the most legendary tracker there is. And he's just a great dude. And people hadn't heard him on an interview in 8 or 9 years. And the only other interview that's on YouTube was, like a 10-minute interview at an expo. But I sat down with him for 2 hours, and he told some great stories. That was the first time I filmed a podcast. And that's my best performing video. It's a 3-part series. And so the idea after that spawned to do some more Living Legends of deer hunting podcasts. And I haven't done another one since until this last weekend. I went down to Connecticut and interviewed Carl Leeser. He's awesome. He got the bug for tracking big bucks later in life, actually 47, and then just started every single year killing a 200-pounder with giant racks. And he knows all the Benoits and Hal Blood, and he's just a awesome dude. And that's coming out. The first one is coming out this Saturday, and then the second part will be Wednesday, and then the third part next Saturday. And they're going to be every week here on out throughout HUNTSTOCK, and then into the season again.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's great what you're doing there, and getting some of these guys who, people haven't heard from. They know the names, but they don't really have that audio bite of hearing them and hearing their stories. And that's one of the beauties of this podcast game, is the ability to do that. So,
dude, how far are you from Marcy? Not too far. Rome, Marcy, Utica.
I'm about 3 hours.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah.
Who are you thinking over there?
Because I'm going to be going to Jim Massett is going to be another one on the Living Legends.
Legend, for sure.
Yep. And then Joe Donito. I'm going to try to get both of them when I go out there. Sometime in the next month. But yeah,
I really enjoy following Joe Donito. That guy, he's a producer. And he's a farmer, and he doesn't get a ton of time to get out. And when he goes, he freaking kills. It's amazing. I love watching his videos. He's so humble. But he's just great. I would very much like to hear that. And that's something, it's amazing, because my best performing podcasts, all of them have been Big Woods Bucks conversation, whether it be Adirondack or Pennsylvania Big Woods.
Yep.
Those have been the best performing episodes I've done over the 160, 170 we have. And I need to get more of those individuals on, because they are a freaking gem, and they're of great value to people that want to learn and grow their skills like that, because it's very hard that content really isn't, there's a few people like yourself out there that are doing it, but there isn't a ton of content that's really focused on that sort of hunting, and, how to read sign, how to become a woodsman really was what it comes down to. And, you can go out there and learn it, but you don't know what you don't know. And, you have to either learn by listening to these people who are very good and will share their techniques and the lessons that they've learned. Because you and I both know that there's a lot of very good hunters out there that don't want to tell you how they do it, because they don't want you following them around or doing what they do. They want to keep that a secret, which, you know what, that's to each his own. But, I think I listened to that episode with Hal yesterday and the crew there at Big Woods. Like he said, he goes, it's all about leaving it for the next generation. It's like these, we're all having kids, and it's like, at the end of the day, a deer's a deer. For me, is your freezer full? Are you feeling like you accomplished something this season? Like, at the end of the day, who cares? And we all have an ego, and we all are desiring to shoot that big trophy buck. But in the end, you can go shoot a huge buck and everybody loves you for a year or 6 weeks or 2 days. And then they move on to the next, and another guy shoots a huge buck, and they're the next hero. It's like, at the end of the day, who cares? Are you a good person?
I always say, dude, people don't care what bucks you shoot. Like, and I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'll see somebody on my timeline post big buck, and it's an impressive, awesome buck. And if I shot that buck, I'd be ecstatic about it. And you just like, you're scrolling through the timeline and you see it and you go, oh, cool. You double tap it, hard it, and you're right under there. Like, dude, that's a giant, whatever. And then I don't think about that again ever, unless I see it in the timeline again. And it's like, so what's the point of just trying to do it for whatever, for accolades or people's attention? It's like, it has to be what you like. And it just has to be for you and you only. And if you do that, you're going to have fun in the woods all the time. I know some guys who, they're not even having fun in the woods because they're thinking about like, man, I shot a 4 or 5 pointer and I'm supposed to, like this guy that I'm friends with. And last year he made this dive into like, I'm going to film everything. I'm going to create a content page. I'm going to, put out this awesome content. And this is going to be the year that I really build my social page and it's going to be awesome. And he put so much pressure on himself last year, and he didn't end up getting a big mature buck, so he was down on himself the whole time. And I was like, dude, you just got to like, don't put that pressure on yourself. Step back. It's okay. You don't need, like, once you start getting into that, that's an unhealthy relationship with hunting. Just go out and have fun. If you're not having fun, dude, it's going to come through in your content anyway. It's going to feel
it's going to feel forced and produced and everything else. And I don't like that sort of content. I want somebody who's just out there being real and showing what it's actually like. And we can sit here and have this discussion. I bet you if I went back and listened to my shows in June and July from previous years talking about the upcoming season, I'd probably spew the same shit out of my mouth. That, I'm not going to get, I'm not going to get stressed. I'm not going to worry about. And then you get to like early November and you haven't had a single opportunity at a buck and you really start getting frustrated because you've been working hard and you put all this time and effort into scouting and habitat work, yada, yada. There's a stress to it when you work hard for it. It's like anything. If you train hard and you practice for anything, or you go to school for something and then you go to take the test and you blow it, well, that sucks. It's really no different. But at the end of the day, like what we're doing is a lifestyle, and it's something that I think you as well as I want to see other people understand our lifestyle and understand how much we love and cherish what we do and love and cherish the animals most importantly. And like it's having people that are good representation of that out there that are producing content. That's one of the main drivers behind me and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is there's a lot of more pressing important things in the world. I think we all could agree to that, and that's one of the things I struggle with weekly on this show. It's like I'm talking about what, and then what are the more there's way more important things going on than this. So those things tear at me. But at the end of the day, like I get feedback from people that from local area, we kind of have a very, just like you, a very local spin to our show. It's focused in New York, especially Western New York, and the vibe I get, people really enjoy that local spin and having somebody who's, interviewing people and sharing stories and kind of enriching the discussion around what we do here locally. So it's cool.
If people want to go watch, see what's going on in the war in Ukraine or COVID's latest bullshit, then they're going to go to the news for that. And people want to go to the podcasts for an escape. Like, you want to listen to deer hunting because you don't want to deal with that. And hunting is a huge mental health thing. Like I think if I didn't have hunting, I'd probably be crazy by now. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like if I didn't have that to get away from everything, I would need a different outlet. I used to play golf, and that was an outlet for a little while until that makes you even more crazy because you can't. You're never going to become perfect at golf. You're always chasing that tiny little ball and shanking in the woods and kicking yourself. But
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, relating back to your point about the stress, and it's different every season. Like, if you get to mid-November and you put all this prep work in, you still haven't had an opportunity or something. Like, that's definitely getting stressful. Like 2 years ago, I passed like 22 bucks or something like that because that was my leap year where I didn't want to shoot a little 5 or 6 pointer. I wanted to get a more mature buck, so I passed like 20 something deer. And then I missed 3 good bucks. Like my next 3 shots I missed. I was just taking bad shots. I was too anxious, too eager to like get that good buck. I was taking shots at 40 yards and small windows and things like that. And I just like so I was getting to that point where it was getting really stressful. And then I was able to connect on one. I think it was November 22nd, and then the pressure was kind of off, and it was like, oh, you feel totally relaxed. I was super relaxed. Got into December, got my second buck December 5th. But then this year, so the following season after that was a completely different year. 2021, I was able to get a buck October 5th. So or October 7th. I think the season opened October 5th. I got it the 7th, and that was awesome because then you're absolutely no pressure the whole time. Like the rest of the season was like, all right, I've got one nice buck and I can be really selective now and I can just go out and have fun. And it was a really stress-free season last year.
Yeah. And it's like that's the thing. Sometimes if you don't press, all of a sudden it just comes right to you and it's easy, but you're dealing with nature, and nature's going to do what nature wants to do, and you can't control that. So you're going to have those years where you're struggling. You're going to have those years where it just falls right in your lap and everything comes together. But
I feel like deer can sense stress sometimes too. Like if you're just super stressed out, something about it. I feel like deer, let's put it this way. I wouldn't rule out that they can feel when there's when there's stress energy around.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're completely relaxed, like you're in the zone, like with any sport and you're in the zone, like Kobe Bryant, scoring 81 points that day, he was just in the zone. You get on a roll. Steph Curry hitting 3 after 3 after 3, right? You just get into that Zen-like zone. You can get into that state hunting too, just completely calm. Every step is going the right way. And I think that's when things come together, because like the woods isn't disturbed, nature doesn't realize, like you're just like you're mixing into everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I bet you there is some sort of energy. I mean, you think about it, you're walking through the woods or you're doing something and you just get this feeling like, like there's something watching me or there's something following me. And that's a sense. Like, I don't know what the hell that is, but there's something there, because you turn around and it's like, there's there is a deer staring at me, or there's a fox that's kind of sneaking up behind me or whatever. There's an energy. I don't know what it is. But I do believe in some of that stuff for sure. But I want to go back to something you just hit on. I think it's so important. You meet people that are diehard into hunting or diehard into fishing, or they have some sort of hobby. But we're talking hunting here today. Like when you are a hunter, like you are, for the most part, you are completely obsessed. And this is everything you think about. It's what you work for every year, is for that period of the year, the fall, when you can get out there and do what you're passionate about. And it's that passion, it's that drive and like that purpose. And I think that's so much of what has become lost in this country. And you see all these issues, all this mental health and kids struggling with things, and hearing all these stories. And it's like, every one of those stories you come back to, there's probably a lack of purpose or something that they're passionate about. And they're individuals that are, they're suffering because they don't have that. And I just, I know all the people around me who are hunters, and I know that there's probably some bad apples in the bunch, but for the majority, like most hunters are like very hardworking. They're committed. They're focused on achieving their goals, regardless of what they are. And most of them seem pretty happy with what's going on in their lives. There's obviously things that get you fired up and frustrated, like all humans. But at the end of the day, like when it comes October 1st, like you're happy as a clam because it's deer season, it's hunting season. And I feel bad for people that don't have that. Like that's one of the things that I love. I've gotten a few friends into hunting and seen them have success for the first time and kill deer and catch that bug. And now they have a whole new purpose in life that they never even knew existed. They just saw what we did and thought it was like a very difficult thing to do, or something that they could never see themselves doing. And then they do it and they catch that and they understand like what it is. It's like, whoa, now I've got something. Like I used to think golf was like my thing. And, I've got my buddy Jeff, who like, he still is like huge into golf, and he loves to fly fish. And that was his thing, was golf and fly fishing. And then I introduced him to hunting 2 years ago in 2020, and off the deep end. Like he might fish a little, but he doesn't fish at all anymore, because it's like, no, I'm a hunter. I'm a deer hunter, turkey hunter. That's what I am. It's like, that's awesome.
My buddy Scotland is big fly fisherman, really good fly fisherman. He always said that he loves golfers. Golf keeps the idiots off the river.
Yeah,
And,
spot on.
yeah, but I can't, like, I hate golf. I am totally over golf. I realized, like, why am I spending 5 hours, like 5 hours doing something that is adding stress to me? It's not like I wasn't a good golfer. My best round was probably mid 90s. And it's like, so if you're mid 90s, you might get 4 or 5 good shots, maybe 10, and the rest of them are bad. Like that was just, it was super stressful. And taking those 5 hours and spending it on other things, I just feel like was so much more beneficial. But
couldn't agree anymore with that statement. It's freaking spot on.
But like going back to like, if your sole purpose in life, or what you feel like your purpose is, or not even feel like, but what it is because you don't have something else. If it's going into an office and making that commute and climbing a corporate ladder, and that's the highest purpose that you have right now in life, that's where people get depressed. Like you're doing the same thing every single day, and for what? Just to have, yeah, you need money, you need some stability, but there's other ways and other things that you can be doing. And there's a lot of people that are just stuck into that. They're stuck into that, going from home to work, work to home to work, work to home, dropping the kid at daycare, picking the kid up, and you just get into that cycle, and that's it. Like that's where the big issue is. And if you just step back, and hunting throws you into, thousands of years ago, you're doing basically the same thing you could have been doing 1,000 years ago. No distractions. It makes you happier because it's like everything is more simple and basic. It's like it's very basic. It hits on our basic human desires and what's been written in our DNA to go out there and chase a deer or whatever animal or game you're chasing and try to kill it and provide food. And that reward is awesome. And it's way better than any reward you can get going to work and climbing a corporate ladder. It's this freaking primal reward system we've had for millions of years evolving inside of us. And if you I lost my train of thought. I was going to tie that up into something and I totally lost it. But if people in Papua New Guinea, there's been studies, like the people who live like in ancient tribal ways still, and they're tribes all across the world. It's not just Papua New Guinea, but they are so much happier than the civilized world. Like they have less mental health. They're happy because they have a basic task they have to accomplish, and they do it, and it's outdoors all the time, and their reward system is hasn't been polluted by all this technology and cities and commuting and all that bullshit.
Yeah, I think about that. We have a ton of Amish and Mennonites I don't know about up in the New England area, but I mean it's like massive in our state here, and I just look at the life that those people live, and they are hardworking. They're out there. I'm sure that they have their stresses and they have their problems, but they are totally insulated from so much of the BS in everyday life that gets so many of us twisted and torqued up. And I never forget when the whole COVID thing started, it was, there was always the memes and the jokes going around. And we're like here in New York where they strapped us to our houses and said, you can't leave or else grandma's going to die and all this. And I remember somebody posted something like, has anybody told the Amish what's going on? because they don't have phones or internet or computers. They're just out there living off the land and providing for their families and their community. That's what they're worried about. There's really something to be said for that. And I say this stuff all the time, and I get on the phone with my friends and I'm bitching and complaining about this or that because it frustrates me. But, I do think it's very important to stay. You have to find a balance. I listen to a ton of news and political talk. I think it's very important to be aware and informed on what's going on so that you can try to make the best decisions you can for yourself and your family. But it's a toxic place to be. It's a toxic environment for sure, but you got to be aware of what's happening. It's nuts. And this is a whole nother topic and I don't really, we shouldn't dive too far into it, but watching what's going on in the outdoor space, in hunting and trapping in particular, there's a lot of legislation that's been floated on those things. So we've done a bunch of stuff this year. Since the first of the year, we've had a bunch of podcasts related to those topics. And I'm very interested to see, what really shakes out here at the end. Our lot of our stuff here in New York is wrapped up and done. Maybe a few things might still get signed in, but there's some wild stuff around the country, and especially here in the Northeast, things that have been proposed. So it's important for people to pay attention to that stuff for sure. If you're listening to this, you're a diehard outdoorsman, and there's a lot of things moving and shaking that if you just bury your heads in the sand and don't show up and vote in the fall and don't get engaged in your local community and those votes, like, our way of life is, we are a significant minority of our population in this country. Like, hunters, there's not that many of us. So if you're not educating yourself and you're not, aware of these things, we could pretty simply, at this point, you can say that we could lose our rights to do what we love to do, and like the whole purpose and everything else we were just talking about. It could just be taken away. Pretty damn easy.
And you can see it more the closer you get to cities, and you have suburbs. You can see it happening, and it starts at the local level. And with like around here, it's town bylaws. A lot of the towns that surround Boston have town bylaws that prohibit you from discharging a weapon in the town, like completely. Some towns, it's like no discharge of a weapon at all unless you're a legal, LTC carrying and you're defending your house, whatever. That's the only time you can discharge a weapon. And then there's other ones that are, bow, you can discharge a bow, but no guns. Then there's, towns that are kind of split. You can discharge a weapon on state or town property, but, nowhere else or whatever. Like, there's like, it all starts at the local level, and then it expands out too. Like, the line where it used to be closer to the city, like, they rub off on that next town, as you get out towards more bigger woods.
Yeah, you got the sprawl happening where people are moving out into the suburbs and building these housing tracts. And yeah, I mean, how much of these areas used to be, farmland and blue collar worker, and now, it's all just pushing further and further out, to your point. And, the way of life is changing. So we have to stay relevant, and we have to educate. And I think it all comes back to, putting out the best image, of what we do. If you're out there making us look like crazy people, then they're going to grab that.
We need a good PR agency that just kind of manages hunters across the country, our image. Because, the weird thing is, as urban sprawl happens and more places get developed, I used to think that, they're knocking down great deer territory and habitat, and they are, but they're also creating good habitat. They're creating edges. They're creating good forage and food for deer. And that's why you see in these suburban and urban areas, the deer per square mile is higher than out in big woods, because it's better habitat to have those edges. So if we can somehow utilize urban sprawl for what it is, it sucks. Don't get me wrong. I hate seeing farms go down and giant and complexes being built and condos and all that. It sucks, but it does create better populations. And if we're, as hunters, we're always saying we want more deer, or we want to, be stewards of the population to make sure that it's at a good carrying capacity, then we should kind of be okay with some of this urban sprawl that allows deer populations to rebound in some places. But we've got to be able to find ways to change laws and bylaws and influence towns and stuff to make it easier for hunters to go in and thin some of that herd out and have great hunting opportunities without being looked at like criminals, and that's a hard nut to crack. And how do you do that?
Yeah. Well, you got to show up, you got to be involved. If you live in those communities, you got to go to those meetings and voice your opinions in a clear and concise manner, and not put yourself out there as someone who's got a wild thought. But I know a lot of towns here locally in upstate New York that have always had, no hunting allowed within the town. And now they're actually opening up hunting programs that, people that live within the community and either know someone that owns enough acreage, or, whatever that acreage amount is, there's some like serious population concerns with the deer, because there's too many deer in too small of an area. And that's where you have the spread of disease and deer that are starving because they're malnourished, and it's just not healthy, so. And you've got destruction to landscape and everything else. So you've got opportunity for sure with these sort of changes in where people are living. you've got opportunity for sure to, to get these programs put in place and have some outstanding hunting potentially literally in your backyard
Yep.
legally. And,
Yep.
and you could be getting your groceries off your 1.5 acres in a village somewhere. Like how awesome is that?
That's literally, I bought an acre and a half that attaches 1.5, just like you said, attaches to my backyard here. And there's a patch of woods that goes 45 or 50 acres in there, and the deer go over there sometimes. And when I first moved in here, I hunted back there. You have to have permission from your neighbors. You have to be 500 feet away from dwelling. So I got all the necessary permissions there. I've got a little corner of my property where I've got all the legal setbacks and everything, and I was able to kill a 6-pointer back there, and it was awesome. But I couldn't believe that. You can't hunt. Like, I should be able to hunt that whole piece of my acre and a half. But because of the crazy setback laws in Massachusetts, like, even if you own property and you're being completely safe, you technically can't shoot unless you're at that one little postage stamp in the corner of that acre and a half. So I think, like, setbacks are a big thing. Like, I would be pushing for setbacks to be smaller, especially in suburban areas. It will open up more opportunity for hunters. Setbacks is like the main thing. I'd go from 500 feet to 200, which, like, New Hampshire, I think, is 200. A lot of the states around here are 200. Some you just got to be 10 feet off a road, and that's it. I think Vermont's like that.
Yeah, these are all interesting things that, and especially with, it comes back around to your podcast and what you're doing, trying to educate people. And I think my cousin David's going to get a huge kick out of this, because I think he lives in Cambridge. He lives in Boston.
Yeah.
And he's fallen completely. He always hunted growing up, but he was very focused on sports and school. And now that he's graduated from college and living in Boston, he travels back here all the time to hunt. But he'll probably get really fired up to hear that you have a podcast there local.
One of the biggest bucks maybe the biggest buck I've ever seen was in Cambridge.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He was showing me pictures during turkey season. Him and his buddy were out riding bikes in the evening. Was it evening or morning? Probably morning. It was morning, and had these gobblers just
oh yeah,
huge toms just strutting around in people's front yards. And he had video, and he had a diaphragm call. He's practicing and talking to them, and they're gobbling at him. So yeah, that's cool as hell. And he'll probably be reaching out to you. David Harvey's his name, so he'll probably be.
Yeah, he should. It sounds like he's got the same thing I was stuck in when I first moved here. And I was like thinking that I was tied to my camp in Vermont, and that was the only place I wanted to hunt. And I didn't think being around here you could hunt and find some good hunting. And then I was really surprised. Like, it's some really good hunting in the suburbs. So have him reach out to me for sure.
I will. That'll be his task. He'll listen to this, and we'll know if he listened or not, if he got to this point, and then he reaches out to you. Yeah. But we're about hour 15, so we'll start to wrap her up. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun kind of connecting and getting to have a discussion with you. We've been trying to line this up, so thanks for your patience. And I really wish you the best with your event this summer with HUNTSTOCK. If you want to just give a plug one more time for that, where people can find out some more information.
Yeah, man, and it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. You can find me at Hunt Suburbia on Instagram, YouTube. Everything is just at Hunt Suburbia. I've got links to buy tickets to HUNTSTOCK there. And like the last thing, HUNTSTOCK is going to be it's going to be like a university. You're going to be able to get all the knowledge of 10, 20 books if you come for 3 days and sit down and listen to seminars and just talk with the hunters that are going to be there. If you want to shoot the 3D archery course, bring your bow, shoot the course. That's benefiting a charity that benefits veterans. They get veterans into archery when they come back. So the 3D course is a portion of that's going to that charity. There's a bunch of good stuff, man. $15,000 in door prizes we're giving away just to everybody who shows up. Each day that you show up, you get a door prize raffle ticket. And we've got 3 different sets of First Light camo, Catalyst, and Solitude gear. We've got Vortex is donating a couple binoculars and rangefinders, Onyx, 10 elite memberships. We've got 3 sets of Yokohama truck tires, which is worth like $1,000 each set of those. Nice. We've got a bunch of bows being given away. We've got elite archery bows, point bows. muzzle loaders. Woodman Arms is raffling off a muzzle loader. Ruger donated a 22. So Ruger will be like, there's just like, I made it a point to, the tickets are $40. It's a little higher than people are normally used to paying for events like these, but because of all the talent that's there and the amazing door prizes, I just wanted to make sure I spent a lot of time locking in door prizes. I want to give a lot of that back to people and give them something exciting. You don't have to buy raffle tickets or anything. You just, everybody who comes has a chance at it. And man, I'm really looking forward to it. If anybody wants to reach out, hit me up at huntsuburbia@gmail.com or find me on social media. And Will, I really appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah. And for anybody, let's say there is a content creator out there who's listening to this. I've got several friends who have podcasts or other things. Is there still opportunity if they want to jump in?
Yep. Yeah. This year, if you're a content creator, it doesn't matter how big or small your page is. If you want to come to HUNTSTOCK and you want to have a booth in our festival area, a tent, you're welcome to come promote your YouTube page, promote your podcast. Even if you haven't started a podcast, but you want to and you want to launch it at HUNTSTOCK, you can hit me up. We just want as many people who are wanting to advance hunting through creating content and sharing that out with people. No matter what the channel or avenue is, you have a place at HUNTSTOCK and we want to have you there. So, completely free. You just pop up a booth, you get a couple of tickets included with it. And we just ask that you add to the experience of the festival. Don't just show up and sit there and not talk to anybody or have anything to do in there. You gotta have something that's going to add to the overall experience. You got to give some type of a giveaway and you got to help promote, and that's it.
Yep. And then if anybody, I know you had a few spots open left to sponsor on the archery course. So if anybody out there wants to sponsor a target, I believe you'll get your name put on the sponsor sign, kind of like you do it like a golf event, right?
Yeah, there's 20 targets. I think 12 or 13 have been bought. And all of this money goes directly to givetothose.org, which is that military charity. So we've already raised $1,200. We can raise $2,000 right away. It's $100 per target. If you want to sponsor one, you got a brand, you want to just put your name or your grandkid's name or whatever on there. Email me and we can get you one of those targets as well.
Yep. You got my money, right? Pert in Your Outdoors will have it.
I did. Yep. You got one. Yep.
Love it. Perfect.
Thanks for that.
All right, Pat, we'll wrap her up. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Cool. Thanks for those of you tuned in on here on Bullhorn. And if this is a new app to you, check it out, download it on your smartphone, and you can listen and participate with your favorite podcast live on air. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Pat, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. See ya.